1, 2, 3, come on!
Before we begin with our second session, I would like to call upon Dr. Swati Patil, Associate Professor and in charge Head of the Department of Pharmacognosy, to introduce our next speaker, Dr. Sadhana Sathe.
Thank you, Alifia. And thank you, Dr. Mrunal Sanay, for giving me this opportunity to introduce to you all Dr. Sadhana Sathe. It is indeed an honor and pleasure to introduce to all of you Dr. Sadhana Sathe, Professor of Pharmacy from Institute of Chemical Technology and a very dear friend. Ever smiling. She's completed her B.Pharm from ICT, Masters in Pharmacy in Clinical Pharmacology from Grant Medical College, Mumbai, and her PhD in Pharmacology from ICT again. Her special skills include designing and executing preclinical and clinical studies. She's an expert pharmacologist in academia. She has got excellent communication skills and leadership qualities. She is an expert in handling in vivo cell-based experiments. She has written patient education booklets. She currently works as Professor of Pharmacy at ICT, and she is there in ICT since 1998. She's a visiting scientist at Department of Biological Sciences, University of Delaware, USA, from July 2011 to April 2012. She has authored around 80 research publications. She's a recipient for various government-funded projects from DST, DBT, and from AICTE. She's also a well-known consultant and has handled different projects, including projects and acting as a consultant for life science in USA from February 2018. Her areas of active research include development of new drug substances or dietary health supplements from herbal origin to treat CNS disorders like epilepsy, Parkinsonism, and Alzheimer's. She also works on evaluation of herbal drugs for their anti-diabetic activity, the PK/PD modeling and biodistribution studies. She is also an expert on of drug-herb interactions. She has successfully guided 45 master students and 16 doctoral students. She is affiliated to professional bodies like the Fellow Maharashtra Academy of Sciences, CPCA, the Maharashtra State Pharmacy Council, Animal Ethics Committee, ICT, various members of committees of ICT. She is a life member of APTI, Indian Pharmacological Society, life member of Indian Women Scientists Association, the member of Society of Toxic, and she is on the editorial board of various research journals. So I present to you this dynamic personality, and let's hear from her. Over to you, Sadhana Madam. A warm welcome to you from KMK family and from the Atal FDP.
Yeah. And Swati, it's so nice to see you here, and I'm really, thrilled to see you all, and thank you everyone. Thank you for such an extensive introduction, but not necessary really. I'm embarrassed a little. It's fine. Yeah. So I first wish to thank KMK organizers for inviting me as a speaker for this particular seminar in emerging trends. And I'll start my presentation. I'll just start with it. Thank you, Mrunal, so much, for inviting me.
I'll just. Sadhana, you are always welcome. Intellect
and it seems an honor. And it's feels so happy to see so many students who have become faculty now. So that's also there. Okay, students and my colleagues. Thank you so much, KMK, for inviting me to discuss and share my experiences with translational research, discovery to therapeutics. So I'm Professor Sadhna Sate from Institute of Chemical Technology. I'll take you through the presentation, and I hope you don't sleep so we can have an interactive session later on, and you could just send me any messages, I mean, regarding any questions. So I'll start with it. I'll be discussing about one of our researches that led us to, trying to translate the phytoconstituent into a therapeutic. So my title is Roadmap to Anti-Epileptogenic Drug Discovery and Development. So to understand about anti-epileptogenic drug discovery, it's little different from anti-epileptic drugs, or rather anti-convulsants or anti-seizure drugs for that matter. So epileptogenesis is a typical process wherein there is a focus in the brain which tends to produce seizures consequently, and with a very with a very little latent period. So the person continuously keeps getting epilepsies, and that affects the productivity of his productivity and his quality of life as well. And as you can see, this particular focus originates in the brain for that matter. So we are going to just have a look at how we went ahead with this anti-epileptogenic drug discovery. So now translational research, traditional research, applied research, all these terms, I generally feel they go in hand, simply because the goal of the translational research is to move the basic science discoveries that you and me do for the benefit of human beings. In our case, it is benefit to the human health. And so we can also say, call whole of this process as bench to bedside. And of course, it's a bidirectional process. It involves basic sciences, the clinical practices. You also need to know what is happening actually in the clinical practices, the population and policy-based research, whether we really need to work into this area. All these, it's a, multidisciplinary integrative process. And traditional drugs as well as ethnopharmacology, both of them are here to rescue and document the important cultural heritage before it is lost. So we in India are really lucky, to have this Ayurveda, folklore medicines, and many other medicines which have been just told to each other. Ayurveda, of course, is recorded or reported in the literature, but folklore medicines are also there. So we need to investigate and evaluate these agents which are employed, and if we could take them ahead, that's the best thing. Now, we are a developing country, we are poor country, and the developing countries have always relied on and will continue to rely on the natural medicines because of very high cost of modern allopathic medicines. And nowadays, I don't even feel that we are developing and we are poor, but simply the fact that allopathic medicines, they would work to cure, or not cure, but provide a symptomatic relief to a particular disorder, whereas we are looking into providing cure or providing a solution to the root cause that is causing the problem or the disorder for that. And this is all possible because a lot of research is going on in pharmacognosy, chemistry, pharmacology, as well as clinical therapeutics, which has been carried out on Ayurvedic plants as well. So, that's the positive news about it. Now, translation examples, you all know. So I'll just run through. So Soralens in vitiligo and Rizapine in hypertension and Guguls in hypolipidemics. Holarina alkaloids in amoebiasis. Maybe you know about this Kuttajarishta, which is an Ayurvedic preparation. And you know Mucuna pruriens, Kapikachu for Parkinson's disease, and piperidine to as bioavailability enhancers. That's also very, very, what do you say, well-known example. You have even Ayurvedic drugs with piperidine in it to increase the activity of the preparation for that matter and to reduce the dose, so as to reduce side effects also. So this is about some examples of translational research as such. Now, going ahead, now I'm going to explain you about the epilepsy. So it is the human brain in which the epileptic focus arises. And that's the reason it's just important to know what are the functions of the brain. So we all know that sensory, associative, and motor, three major functions, and particularly it requires oxygen and glucose for energy production. Always, even when you're sleeping, it requires that. And last is it requires, like, the size of the brain is about 1 to 2% of the whole human body, but picking up about 20% of the cardiac output. Just trying to tell you that it is the organ which is keeping us in contact with the extreme, meaning outside world as well as the inside world. And I'm just trying to show you an animation of the neuron showing many dendrons and an axon which is showing many endings for that matter, just to show the connectivity to different parts and connectivity from different parts and to different parts. So, you know, any damage to the brain cell is going to produce havoc. And then the part that gets affected in epilepsy, that is the hippocampus, which is inside the brain. You can't see it like this. This is about the vertical section of the brain that shows the brain section for that matter. I think for those whom the slides are not visible, probably your internet connection is bad, because I can see it here. So I guess that could be the problem.
Yes, yes, they are visible. Your slides are visible. Maybe they have internet connectivity.
So students, just check on that. Should I wait for some time? Because I can see that here. Okay, I think I'll go ahead. So one important fact about the epilepsy and the neurotransmitter, like, you know that everything in the body is in homeostatic balance. So even the neurotransmitters in the brain are in homeostatic balance. We know a very good example of adrenaline and acetylcholine, which is in perfect balance. Like, you will have both of them in the right quantities so that the functions go on. So in epilepsy, remember that glutamic acid and gamma aminobutyric acid. Glutamate, which is an excitatory neurotransmitter, and GABA, which is an inhibitory neurotransmitter, both of them are in perfect balance. Now, why this? Because you have glutamic acid decarboxylase, GAD, that converts glutamate to GABA, and GABA transaminase, meaning gamma aminobutyric acid transaminase, that converts it into glutamic acid. One is excitatory neurotransmitter to such an extent that it can even cause damage to the brain. One is an inhibitory neurotransmitter responsible for controlling this excessive firing by the cells and maintaining the brain functions in a perfect manner. So both of them have to be in balance, and when this goes, you have definitely issues. So GABA is responsible for 40% of all CNS inhibitory processes, and glutamate is an excitatory neurotransmitter which activates specific receptors. Further, homeostatic balance is important for synchronized neuronal activity. And why this is important here? Because synchronized neuronal activity directly leads to synchronized muscle contraction for that matter. And when this synchronization goes, you get very, very strong muscular contractions that lead to epilepsy. So now just about the differences between seizure and epilepsy. Seizure is nothing but it is abnormal synchronization, meaning excessive firing, less of inhibition, which leads to muscle twitches and spasms, and also alters behavior, sensations, and consciousness. So behavioral changes are also seen during seizure, and epilepsy is recurrent seizures, which are, maybe due to acute systemic or neurological insight. And many a times, too much of excitation. We all know that sodium and calcium invert currents, maybe because of glutamate and aspartate, and lack of chloride or outward K currents, maybe because of lack of GABA. This may be the reason, meaning increased glutamate or decreased GABA activity could lead to epilepsy for that matter. Now, how would you check that? Because you have different types of epilepsies. When you have generalized seizures with the whole body showing contractions, fine, at least you can say, yes, it is there. Or contractions of certain muscles, yes, you can say, okay, that's epilepsy. But what if the person suddenly drops, if he loses consciousness? Why is that? Is that epilepsy, or is that simply hypotension? Or is that simply, lack of oxygen or whatever? So what is that? So you can do it by electroencephalography. This is the best diagnostic tool as of today to check whether activities in different parts of the brain are perfectly normal. So this is a normal EEG, whereas here you can see partial seizure, like some of them are normal and some of them you can see increase. And this is that grand mal epilepsy, as we call generalized seizures, that's been seen in this EEG pattern peculiarly. So misfiring, it is because of the misfiring of the neurons. Why misfiring? Because there is no inhibitory control for that matter. Now, aren't there any drugs? Why should I choose this? There are many drugs, and if you can see, last 150, we can say last 1.5 centuries, many drugs have come up, and if you can see, most of them have come after 1990 or 2000. Most of them, you can see almost every year there are many drugs. The latest one is approved in 2019. So I am just trying to tell you that many drugs are there, many drugs are approved. First it was a slow process, but since 1990, 2000, suddenly there's an increase in the number of ADs. However, there are major side effects to all these drugs. So there are neurological and psychiatric side effects. There is sedation, fatigue, gastrointestinal side effects are there, rashes, exfoliation is there, meaning idiosyncratic behaviors are there. Then you have long-term adverse effects, you have neuropathy, pain, you have hirsutism, development of facial hair, particularly in females, then gingival hyperplasia, because of lack of blockage of certain channels because of these drugs, osteoporosis, similar. And most importantly, that all of them, they require therapeutic drug monitoring. So at lower dose, they are not active. The dose increases a little and you have all the side effects. This increases the cost of the treatment modality. This increases burden on the patient for that matter. And one more thing is, none of these drugs, they inhibit the epileptic process, or what we call it as epileptogenesis. So, what is the major issue or crux is that, you should have drugs which delay the latency as well as curb the seizure episodes. Both, seizure episodes also should go down and the latency should go up. Meaning if you're getting epilepsy within in a period of 6 months, it should go to 1 year. The latency should increase, and that's the need of the hour, because there is certain focus and there are certain things that are going on in the brain. If you could stop that, you could really offer a patient an improved quality of life and productivity as well. So once the quality of life improves, yeah, the patient is fine. And then his productivity would definitely increase. Now, why do you use animal models? Do you really need to use animal models? So yes, that's because they are exactly similar to the human systems that are, they have systems which are very, very similar to human systems, and we can definitely, because see, it's epilepsy. You can't just work it out in the cells for that matter. You could check one or two biomarkers, but to see a overall whole body effect, you have to have animals. So animal models are important. They help us to discover new anti-epileptic drugs or spectrum, because you have so many models. You can even check the spectrum of a particular identified phytoconstituent, in my case, in others chemically synthesized compound for that matter. You even have models for pharmacoresistant seizures, because these days drug resistant epilepsy is also common. So you have specific models for that. You have to evaluate whether the efficacy of the new anti-epileptic drug changes with chronic treatment, whether it shows resistance, whether it doesn't work at chronic treatment. So that is also important. You can study in using animal models, compare the adverse effects in epileptic as well as non-epileptic animals. Then evaluation of effective plasma concentrations. You have to do this for first clinical trials, otherwise who will believe you? And so animal models are important, and discovery of anti-epileptogenic or disease modifying treatment. This is my favorite. Like, you have to find out how we could modify the disease for that matter. Of course, everything is important, but my focus is this. Now, what is this epileptogenesis? So epileptogenesis is why would it occur? What is this process? What would produce an epileptic focus? So stroke, then trauma, then tumors in the brain, infections in the brain, status epilepticus. Most of you would know that when the epileptic attack doesn't get controlled, generally what happens, there is a severe muscle contraction, and after which the patient just becomes unconscious, so as to pick up for the loss of energy, so as to make up the energy back. He becomes unconscious and the energy is revived. But then in status epilepticus, this doesn't happen. So continuous muscle contractions, and that can lead to death as well. So status epilepticus is quite dangerous for that matter. And complex febrile seizures, so particularly small children who are growing and they have high fever as about more than 100 to 105 sometimes, you should always see as a parent also that the fever should never increase, because there is a chance that this could literally cook up the cells in the hippocampus and they may die. And these cells may be the ones which are producing GABA. And so degeneration of GABAergic neurons can lead to epileptogenesis. Trust me, I know a patient who was about 28 years old and suffered from an accident on a bike and got a head trauma. Since then, the epileptic focus is there. And today he is about 50 years of age and still has this epilepsies. Anytime they come, he doesn't know when it would come. So these are some what you say traumas or certain reasons why the process of epileptogenesis starts. And this is just about animations. What do you mean by tonic, that is straightening, and clonic, that is jerking movements for that matter. Okay. Then okay, so you have a cascade of morphological and functional changes which results into spontaneous recurrent seizures. And the intensification, seizure intensification also makes them resistant to therapy. Therapies won't work. And thus, our aim should be to increase the silent period or the latent period, which is a therapeutic window from for prevention of this process called as epileptogenesis. So now what are the therapeutic interventions? So generally you have anticonvulsant drugs, which are also called as anti-ictal or anti-seizure drugs. And if you see, we just saw so many of them are there. They work on spontaneous seizures, but they produce cognitive and behavioral alterations as well. And anti-epileptogenic drugs, the disease modifying drugs, there are hardly any or maybe not any, so we all should look into this. Apart from these, there are certain surgical processes also which the surgeon can carry out, and he would neurosurgeon generally, and he would just remove that particular focus, because they would understand during the EEG where is the focus, and they would remove that particular focus so as to give a good quality of life to the patient. So if you cannot control epilepsy, that will intensify, leading to drug resistant, and that's really not right good thing, because you will just go on trying different drugs and it wouldn't work. So it is very important that you modify the process for that matter. And the epileptogenesis needs to be controlled for inhibiting the generation of epileptic focus and consequent episodes for that matter. Okay, 1 minute. So most of the anti-epileptic drugs which we have today in the market are not anti-epileptogenic. Now, what are the changes during epileptogenesis? What happens? What do you mean by focus generation? So there is neurodegeneration. Generally, it is the GABAergic neuronal degeneration. Inflammation, because whenever the cells die, when they die and arachidonic acid gets metabolized, you know that inflammatory markers are produced, inflammation is there in that particular area. You have neuronal hyperexcitability, because maybe there is a GABAergic neuronal degeneration. So you have hyperexcitability, expression and function of receptors and ion channels. This also is there, wherein more calcium channels, more sodium channels are expressed for that matter. And most worst is when there is a neuronal degeneration, the axons and dendrons and the astroglia, meaning astrocytes, they, like whenever a neuronal cell dies, instead of producing a neuronal cell, the astroglial cell gets produced, and that produces a acidic protein, GFAP it is called, glial fibrillary acidic protein, which is very damaging, which is inflammatory. Meaning not only the neurodegeneration, but also the sprouting and gliosis, astrogliosis, that needs to be controlled, because that is extremely inflammatory in nature. And inflammation, once it sets in, it will go on degenerating the neurons for that matter. So this is, I'm not going to get into this much into details, because I've copied this from some place. It's available everywhere. All I just want to tell you is that you have both models, genetic models as well as normal animals. You can create epilepsy. So these are the models where you use normal animals. I have not worked with genetic models at all. So as far as normal animal models are concerned, you could have models for generalized seizures or absent seizures, or you could have models for partial seizures, where you could use either electric shock or chemicals to induce seizures. So electroshock seizures, 6 Hertz seizures, they are electrical seizures, or you can have chemically induced seizures, which could be chronic also. It's called as a kindling process. So chronic seizures could be kindled by electrical as well as chemicals. And you could have status epilepticus model. So, you have lot of models available. It is your choice which to choose and what to, which model to choose for a particular drug for that matter. And I would suggest that you at least choose 2 to 3 models. Because I'll give you a very good example. The next slide shows that these drugs which are very, very effective these days, levetiracetam, tigaben and vigabatrin, which are used in partial seizures, they failed to show any activity in MES models, which represents partial seizures. Then, so because then you have to use different models. Topiramate, levetiracetam and pregabalin, which are effective against absent seizures, they did not show any activity in PTZ. So go on, do more models. That's the essence. Meaning, if you are convinced, if you have designed a drug based on a based on molecular docking, and you've synthesized it, and if it doesn't show activity, check in other models for that matter. Or if a phytoconstituent is there showing a very good activity on a particular ion channel or a receptor, but not showing any effect, change the model, do it, and it works. So you have to screen the drugs with different other models for for correct prediction of anti-epileptic drug efficacy against a particular seizure type. Meaning, don't get demoralized. If your rationale is correct, go ahead with more models. So now I'll just come to today's topic, like how we developed Eclipta alba or maca, which is very commonly known as, for this and anti-epileptogenic use of it. So it is a herb. It's a small shrub which grows throughout India and widely distributed in China, Thailand, as well as Brazil. We all know maca tel, maca oil or bringaraj oil is a famous hair tonic for maintaining dark hair and reversing baldness also. They claim, yes, they claim about the baldness also, meaning there is something to do with some growth hormone. Leaves are used to treat epilepsy in India. So one of my students, long back, Farooq, he was working with me, and he had a relative who was suffering from epilepsy, and he was determined, madam, if I work, I'm going to work with epilepsy only. And he read about this article that the maca leaves are pounded with garlic and pepper and administered orally, which to what do you say, to give relief from epilepsy. And if the patient is unconscious, they would just drop it into the nostrils, meaning how could he take it orally? So just put the juice in his nostrils. So this was the reference, and he read about it and he was very interested, and he said, madam, let's work on that. And then when we saw other literature that maca is also used in treating insomnia, sleeplessness, mental agitation, it cures, it calms the stressful situation, and by toning majja dhatu, and that was Ayurvedic terminologies. Of course, we have our Ayurvedic doctor friends who help us doing that. Bringaraj, this particular Eclipta, it increases the blood flow to the brain and it nourishes the brain. So, when a particular thing increases the blood flow, naturally inflammatory matter also is taken away from the brain in that case. So we further tried to explore this maca, and we saw that the dried leaves of Eclipta, which contain vedololactone, dimethyl vedololactone, and norvedololactone. So these are all vedololactone derivatives, and it's a coumarin for that matter. And other things are phytosterol like beta-amirin. You have triterpenes like ecalbatin, then olenic acid, ursolic acid, flavones like luteolin and lutein, then 7-glucoside. Then vedololactone, as I told you, it's a complex coumarin, and it has got selective affinity towards the benzodiazepine binding site of the GABA receptor. So this particular binding site opens up the chloride channels. It increases the inhibitory processes. That was literature publication. And then luteolin, which is a flavonoid, has an ability to cross blood-brain barrier and also anti-inflammatory in nature and neuroprotective activity that it possesses. Meaning all the substances, meaning most of them, 2-3 of them at least, showed positive maybe rationale for working on it. Okay, we can work on it. So beta omirin reduces frequency of epileptic seizures, stabilizes neuronal cell membrane, and balances glutamate level. So these are all published literature references that we got, and we thought, yes, we should go ahead with this particular plant for its therapeutic activity as epileptogenic, anti-epileptogenic. So these are the four major constituents that we saw. Vadilolactone, we evaluated on Drosophila model, fruit fly that is, and it rescued the flies from PTZ-induced locomotor changes, indicating protection from seizure-like activity. However, we couldn't publish this data. Then epigenin and luteolin. So epigenin and luteolin is a metabolite of epigenin. Both of them are flavonoids, and they are evaluated in animal models of epilepsy, and they demonstrated good anticonvulsant activity. So this we were able to publish as anticonvulsant activity of Eclipta alba in Eclipsia in 2011. So we could do that. And always remember, whenever you find out something, publish it. That's the best thing. And beta amirin. So this is a steroid compound, and it delayed the latency of epileptic attacks in catamenial epilepsy. So different model. This catamenial epilepsy is typically in menstruating young girls when they get menstruation because of changes in the progesterone and estrogen levels. Many times they are liable to this catamenial epilepsy. So we evaluated the efficacy of beta amirin in this epilepsy, and we got good results. However, we were not able to publish the data. So, looking at Eclipta alba, so many students explored it. In 2011, Farooq did that with its anticonvulsant activity in animal models of epilepsy. Then both Farooq and Jayant Sancheti, they did a review paper. They wrote a review paper about phytoconstituents of Eclipta alba, and particularly for anti-epileptic activity for this of the same. Then Farooq and Jayant, both of them, they also showed that the Eclipta alba extract works on GABA mediated epilepsy, meaning there is some role of GABA, and we published this paper as well. And next what we did was we even published Eclipta alba luteolin, which was extracted and isolated from the maca leaves in animal models of epilepsy, and we published it in Pharmaceutical Biology in 2017. Meaning slowly things were going on. Sometimes you could publish, sometimes we could not, but most of the times whenever we could, we did that. And then there was one more unpublished data in 2017 by one of my students, which studied the docking of major constituents of Eclipta alba on GABA receptors, because I told you that it is the GABAergic activity which is responsible for controlling epilepsy. And if you can see, vadilolactone, the interaction energy is minus 5.42. Luteolin is minus 6.89. And you can see diazepam, meaning a standard one, which is minus 4.21. And zaleplon, which is minus 5.65. So what I want to tell you is that vadilolactone and luteolin, both of them showed better activity against the GABAergic receptor. So, okay, we knew we are going to take this ahead. Then really, is it really worth looking at epilepsy for that matter? So absolutely yes, you can see that this brown region is, huge load of epilepsy. You can see Asia generally, a lot of epilepsy, maybe because of higher number of people. Of course, you can't ignore the other ones also, here. It is there in developed countries as well. Not that it is there only in Asia. So what was the goal? The goal was to prevent seizures. Prevent seizures, to reduce the frequency of the seizures duration or severity of the seizures, reduce it. See if you could increase the latent period. Prevent or reduce the behavioral and cognitive alterations which are associated with epilepsy. That's also very important. Patient can just get depressed for that matter. Prevent or reduce neurodegeneration, most important, because if you could do that, if they have any property of neurogenesis, perfect. I mean, then you've got something very good anti-epileptogenic for that matter. So novel drugs or formulation which would interfere with epileptogenic process was our goal to develop this particular formulation, you can say, or a treatment modality for that matter. So it started with extraction and isolation of coumarin fraction, because coumarin fraction has got vadolactone, and you saw that vadolactone has got so much of interaction energy. Of course, luteolin also has. So we separated coumarin fraction from Eclipta alba. The yield was 8%. We evaluated in both MES and PTZ different models of epilepsy. Yes, it showed good activity. It also exerted significant activity in delaying seizures and reduced the seizure score during kindling, meaning we tried to do it in chronic kindling model of epilepsy because our goal was to increase the latency, whether it really does that. So yes, it did that. And the coumarin fraction, so we thought, let us now formulate it and characterize it as 1% coumarin nasal formulation, meaning we would use this extract to formulate the nasal formulation. And in the meanwhile, we also isolated vadolactone from this coumarin fraction. And the coumarin nasal formulation, now we will denote it as CNF, which is slightly yellowish in color and a very pleasant aromatic odor that it has. So the rationale for formulation was that Ayurvedic literature mentioned that the Eclipta leaves are pounded with garlic and pepper and they are instilled into an unconscious patient. Even then it works. So that was the major literature that we got. And that Eclipta alba, meaning the maca, is also considered as a rasayana for longevity and rejuvenation. Meaning something is there for relating to growth. Maybe neurogenesis, you don't know, you need to find out. So it could be there. Then coumarin fraction, 100 milligram per kg oral. This was an oral dose which exhibited excellent anti-epileptic activity. That was in 2018 paper published by Suraj Mukhe, another PhD student. And nose to brain delivery for better bioavailability at a low dose for quick action against seizure. So you want a low dose so that even if it is a herbal substance, it could produce side effects. So you have to have a low dose. You need to have a quicker action. You need to delay the seizure, what do you say, latency. The latency needs to be longer. So for all that, we chose Eclipta and we did, CNF formulation for that matter, and 1% coumarin fraction weight by volume total solids, and it looked nice, pale yellow color formulation. It was formulated using surfactant, co-surfactant solubilizers and buffer in the permitted amounts for the nasal formulation. My friend Dr. Purnima Amin, she helped me for doing this. So of course you need help from your pharmaceutics friends to do this. And then it was stored in an amber color vials because vadolactone is typically light sensitive. And the stability studies were carried out as per ICH guidelines. So going ahead, so we did the solubility studies just to check which is the best surfactant and co-surfactant for that matter. And as you can see, that maximum solubility was in tween 80 and in PG 300 as a co-surfactant. So Professor Amin helped me in doing all this. Now mapping whatever is there, whatever that was there in the extract, is it there in the formulation as well? So epigenin, These are standard epigenin. B is standard vadolactone and C is standard luteolin. And this is coumarin extract, which shows vadolactone in fraction, meaning the coumarin separated fraction. And you can also see the other ones, epigenin, luteolin, and you can see in CNF also vadolactone and others were there. Of course, this is a different scale, so they appear same, but they are not same. The presentation has already been submitted, so you would be getting an access to the same for that matter. Okay, so what I want to tell you is that we had the components in the coumarin fraction and we had the similar components in the formulation as well. So what was there in extract and what was there in formulation? Drug content. So vadolactone was 81%, epigenin was 4.37 and luteolin was 1.24%. And if you see, the drug content in CNF was about I guess eight times more. So 11% almost here, and 1% almost here, and 0.6% here in the CNF, meaning in coumarin and in CNF. So in maybe not in that proportion because the solubility of each individual constituent changes for that matter. Okay, so drug content was done by this formula, weight of vadolactone in the formulation about weight of formulation into 100, and the drug content was calculated. And we also did many stability studies, meaning we first did 1%, that is 10 milligrams per ml. But then when we did stability studies, we found that 1 milligram per ml was working very well. The others were not as stable. And that's the reason we further decided that we'll go ahead with 1 milligram per ml and not 10 milligram per ml. Because your formulation has to be stable as well. So then in vitro release studies, so we did all that in saline nasal electrolyte solution. Everything is there in literature as to how you make it, and we put 10 milligrams of coumarin extract or 10 ml of CNF, which is equivalent to 10 milligrams. So we put it in a dialyzing bag and we took samples at different time intervals, and 200 microliters of samples were withdrawn. And this is with the release of coumarin extract, and you can see this is the release of coumarin fraction. What release? We are looking at vadolactone release because we took that as biomarker because 81% and 11% in the formulation, 81 in the extract and 11% in the formulation. So there was an enhanced release which was calculated by taking the ratio of two slope values, and it was found to be 1.62. That means the formulation released 1.6 times faster, vadolactone 1.6 times faster than the coumarin fraction could release over a period of time. Now first 15 minutes, CNF released more vadolactone as compared to the coumarin fraction, and meaning our goal to increase the brain delivery, meaning release, is okay. I mean, yes, we proved it. We can go ahead with this. We could use it as a nasal formulation for that matter. Then next was permeability. Okay, we saw it in dialyzing membrane. Now you have to see it through the nasal mucosal membrane. So it was done using a France diffusion cell, and we put in the membrane, we put goat nasal mucosa as the membrane, and it had to be done immediately. Like we could get the mucosa in a cold buffer and then mounted it and did the study on the same day. Donor compartment contained 1 ml of solution, meaning CNF or coumarin extract solubilized. An acceptor compartment contained that saline nasal electrolyte solution, that is 20 ml, and we had to remove solutions, and the formula is there to check the permeability. These calculations were quite complicated, but yes, they are always. So we could see the permeability of coumarin extract versus CNF, particularly permeated vadilolactone, and you can see, yes, vadilolactone, the way it shows in vitro release, it shows the permeation as well. So we saw that CNF permeated faster in the beginning, and it showed 1.36 times faster permeation. So, not as much as the other one, but 1.36 times faster permeation. And then generally, if you say, it resulted in 2 folds higher permeation of vadilolactone as compared to coumarin fraction over a period of 8 hours. So over a period of 24 hours, it was less, but over a period of 8 hours, it was almost 2 times. You just want to say that, okay, then you can instill the drops every 8 hours for that matter. That's later. But right now, the permeability also indicated that, yes, it is capable of increasing. Then we evaluated for the phytoconstituent analysis, and we got the same result. I mean, the same results. I'm just trying to show you here. And vadilolactone finally was taken as a marker compound. So we evaluated the CNF for phytoconstituent analysis with vadilolactone as a major marker compound. Stability, drug content, and drug release were performed by ICH guidelines. Permeability was evaluated using goat nasal mucosa in a France diffusion cell, and irritancy was checked on an HET-CAM assay, hen's egg test, chorionic allantoic membrane. It's a very, very simple assay using saline as a normal control, and standard irritant chosen was sodium dodecyl sulfate, surfactant for that matter. So evaluation of CNF irritancy potential, we used 6 eggs per group. The group 1 contained, group 1 was normal control, that is saline. The group 2 is vehicle control, that is the solubilizers, co-surfactants, etc. And whatever that we had used as excipients. Group 3 was negative control, which was sodium dodecyl sulfate and potassium hydroxide, and our formulation was group 4. So, and we used 6 eggs per group, hence fertilized eggs. So you generally have, after 30 seconds and after 5 minutes. So 2 readings were taken, and the parameters that were checked were hemolysis, hemorrhage was seen, lysis of the blood vessels was seen, and coagulation was seen. So you can actually see coagulation here. So, and there is a peculiar score. It's all published. The papers are there, and you could definitely use this method. Very, very simple method. And these days in the cosmetic industry also, the irritation potential is checked by this, meaning instead of checking it on actual animals, it is checked by this, and it's got a very good correlation for that matter. And then you can see the irritancy score of the normal control of CNF, which is almost 0.07. And of course, vehicle also did not show any irritation for that matter, because all the excipients, everything used was within accepted limits. Group 3, which was a negative control, which showed an irritancy score of almost 11.5. So that means your methodology is right. The irritant is showing irritation. The normal control is not showing irritation, and your formulation is also not showing, indicating yes, it could be used as such. So then irritancy score, as I told you, negative control was 11.59 and normal was 0, almost 0.07. So the CNF treated group, that is the group 4, as well as the vehicle control, did not exhibit any irritancy for that matter. So then, okay, so now you have done a whole lot of studies, you've come till here. Now it is the time to show that your formulation also works on animal models of epilepsy for that matter. And we decided, because our aim was to have a larger window or to increase the latency, we decided that we use a kindling, PTZ kindling model. So we used that model. The protocol was approved, and another protocol was approved simply for, uh, uh, see, there should be no bias. So you should see that whether there are any blood levels or brain levels which are seen and which are correlating with the effect you get. So this is called as PK-PD correlation, pharmacokinetic and pharmacodynamic correlation. And that's why we did 2 animal studies. One which we did was to show that it has got anti-epileptogenic effect, and the other thing was that it does produce good amount of blood as well as brain level. The formulation gets distributed well when you give it by nasal route. So PTZ induced kindling, and where we used the CNF, it was mice were used here, 5 and 10 milligrams per kg. Each mouse is 25 grams. So accordingly, the dose was instilled into the nose. The diazepam was given as 1 milligram per kg. It was given IP. PTZ injections were also given IP. And what we did, the drugs we gave every day, and PTZ injections we gave it alternate days, meaning that's how the procedure is. And these are the seizure scores to check. So it was like when the animals arrived, they were quarantined and acclimatized for 7 days, and then the test started from 0 day. You start with giving the drugs every day, and every alternate day, second, fourth, you give PTZ 35 milligrams per kg. Now this dose is also submaximal dose. Actual epileptic dose of PTZ is 70 milligrams per kg, but we gave 35 because we wanted to kindle the animal. We wanted to produce that epileptogenic focus in the brain. So this is a GABA antagonist, PTZ, and that's what we used. And when at the end of now, why we took 32 days? At least when we saw one death of an animal where we were not treating by PTZ, we took that as end. We could have continued that, but then we stopped it at the day when we saw death of an animal there. So we sacrificed it within 16 days. The animals, within 16 injections, the animals were kindled, and we stopped it. And we did antioxidant parameters, we did immunohistochemistry, and we also checked for neuronal damage. So this was the whatever that you saw there, diazepam IP and PTZ negative control. Normal control was, you have to use normal control as well. Vehicle also you have to use just to show vehicle doesn't have any activity, and CNF was instilled in the nose. PTZ was given by IP. So on second, fourth day, you first give these drugs, CNF or diazepam, and then after 30 minutes you give PTZ. That's what was the protocol was. So seizure score was calculated, it looks quite clumsy, but all you can see here is that the number of injections and the seizure score that you can see here is, one is CNF 10 milligrams per kg, which showed significant inhibitory effect on acquisition of kindling for that matter. And diazepam, meaning equivalent to diazepam, you can see the red one is diazepam. So equivalent to diazepam that it showed. So that was quite what you say motivating factor for us. So you have to prove using different markers. So because gliosis, astrogliosis is there, which produce this glial fibrillary acidic protein, which is a direct measure of inflammation. We did the hippocampal region immunohistochemistry to check the GFAP, and as you can see that the negative control, meaning only PTZ, it shows a lot of these green fluorescence which is being mapped here. So you see GFAP highest with negative control, and you can see diazepam reduced it, but CNF 10 milligrams per ml also reduced it very well. Both the doses reduced, but 10 which showed better activity even than diazepam here. Significant decrease. All of them showed significant decrease than the negative control, but 10 milligrams showed wonderful effect. Now TNF alpha. So TNF alpha is tumor necrotic factor alpha. Although CNF exhibited a significant decrease in the level of TNF alpha, it was not as good as diazepam for that matter. Now, as far as it is very important that whenever there is a neurodegeneration, there is an oxidative damage, and all these enzymes, superoxide dismutase, catalase, they are reduced because they have to overwork, and lipid peroxidase increases because the cells die, and their membranes, they produce lipid peroxides. So, lipid peroxidation increases in a dying dead cell, and superoxide catalase, they reduce oxidative damage, and reduced glutathione is the body's inherent capacity to pick up the reactive radicals for that matter. So the results were quite interesting, that the negative control showed reduction in SOD and catalase, and it showed immense increase in lipid peroxidase, indicating the degeneration in that particular area, and reduced glutathione also was decreased. Then the diazepam did good to both the parameters, superoxide dismutase, catalase, as well. It increased both of them. It also increased glutathione for that matter. The diazepam also reduced the lipid peroxidase for that matter. CNF also did a good job in all three parameters. You can see it did the best job as far as reduced glutathione was concerned, and a similar job as far as similar job as diazepam as far as lipid peroxidation was concerned. So you can say that it restored the levels of protective superoxide dismutase, catalase, and reduced glutathione significantly. It lowered the levels of MDA, that is lipid peroxide, and it exhibited commendable effect in ameliorating the oxidative stress, because yes, stress is also one of the factors that could induce neurodegeneration for that matter. So now we had good pharmacodynamic study, and then we had to prove that yes, the CNF also reaches the brain for that matter. So we had to prove that as well. So we used rats this time because it's easier to collect blood for that matter. And we gave the formulations, our CNF formulation, as well as we gave only vadolactone, just to see how it behaves and whether you can map vadolactone in the brain as well as in the blood for that matter. And we did a pharmacokinetic study. The group 1, it received vadolactone, and dose was only 100 microliters. Whatever we gave, it was same. So it was 100 microliter IV vadolactone to group 1. CNF was given 100 microliter IV, 100 microliter nasal, and 100 microliter IP. all same, 1 milligram per ml, so 0.1 milligram to every animal. So here also vadolactone 0.1 milligram because it was given in that particular manner itself. So meaning you keep everything else same and just check the levels. So this was CNF when it was given IP, CNF given IV, nasal, and the last one where we are comparing it with vadolactone for that matter and different pharmacokinetic parameters. So you can see the vadolactone, the highest levels were reached within 15 minutes, 0.25 hours. Of course, IV vadolactone was faster. But if you see, in the CNF, it is only 10% of vadolactone. And here you are giving complete vadolactone. But if you see the AUC, see, it all depends on how good it gets across the blood. So you see the difference in AUC. The CNF better penetrates, better gets across, better permeates into the blood for that matter. So that's the important thing here to show. 1 minute. Huh? Yeah. Now see the brain levels. So sorry for this. Vadolactone is now up at 3. This is AUC's 3863 vadolactone, 10 times less CNF. 1/10 of it is 290. You can see the levels, not similar, but commendable, high levels. Meaning what I just want to say that it is reaching the brain. And you can see the brain to plasma ratio, which is 4 at 12 hours and 6 at 24 hours, meaning it is going to the brain more than in the plasma. You want the brain distribution because you want the drugs in anti-inflammatory activity or reactive oxygen scavenging activity in the brain for that matter. So this proves our point. And then stability studies, as I have shown you, that 1 milligram per ml showed consistent yield drug content. And that's why 1 milligram per ml was taken for the animal studies for that matter. Now concluding, 1% CNF was developed and optimized and studied for its absolute as well as brain bioavailability in rats. The CNF 1% formulation, meaning not 1%, we then did it to 1 milligram per ml. It reduced the seizure score during the killing period and ameliorated the oxidative stress and neuronal damage. It showed significant activity in delaying the seizures. So, we continued. We stopped the study at 32 days because we had to have some parameters set. Okay, we are going to compare everything at this day. But then we wanted to see when we give CNF, how long the animals go in spite of giving PTZ injections. So they started getting first epilepsy at 48 days, meaning a little score there. So, we saw a good window of seizure delay by giving the CNF. And so we propose this promising formulation for treatment of epilepsy. Now to conclude, we published this particular paper as a neuroprotective effect of coumarin nasal formulation in kindling model assessment of epilepsy in Frontiers. And further, we did and evaluated vadolactone formulation, which we have patented now. The patent is now published and it's due for examination. So vadolactone also, only vadolactone also works very well, and that we have patented. So thank you everyone. So Suraj Mukhe was the one. So many students did this project right from 2011 to come to this particular stage. But Suraj was the one who just took it ahead with pharmacokinetic and pharmacodynamic correlation and publication and further valulolactone patent. And Sneha is my student. She also is from KMK, and she did this presentation and this wonderful uh, animated presentation for me. She defended her PhD thesis today. So that's all for you and open for any questions. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for the insightful session, ma'am. I would now like to invite Dr. Swati Patil to briefly summarize the session.
Thank you, Alifia. Thank you so much, Sadhana madam. It was an
Hey, don't call me madam, come on.
it was an amazing research journey which you shared with us today. I know post-lunch sessions are very difficult.
I hope
Keep
they
the
didn't sleep.
participants awake, but believe me, none of us have moved away from the laptop. Very, very interesting. Your slides were so colorful, and those animations in the beginning were really nice. Thank you so much for that detailed input into everything about epilepsy, the animal models. How did you hypothesize on a traditional lead, taking the lead ahead? How did you work out on extraction and then further so much detailing to almost making it an product? Thank you so much for sharing all the details. And
So
I think we will.
I'm ready to take any questions. And
yes. There are a lot of
many of us particularly work on herbs, I'm sure, and we all want to kind of materialize the research, translate rather.
Yes, ma'am, there are a lot of thank you messages for you for this new technological information.
So I just want to tell every faculty member that don't get upset because something doesn't work. It's okay. That's okay. Go ahead. Just don't stop there. You have students. You can just explain it to them, and they would definitely love to explore.
Yes, ma'am, I have a personal question. I mean, since you mentioned about the diffusion studies with that goat intestine, so I tried one.
Nasal membrane.
Nasal membrane. I tried with goat intestine, and it was stinking. The entire lab was stinking, and nothing went through that goat intestine even after 3 days.
Okay, tell me where did you get? I'll tell you what must have happened. You tell me where did you get it from?
From the slaughterhouse.
So generally it takes a long time because you getting it from Devnar, even if you get it so generally check out for people in your area where they
from Kulaba only we got it. In half an hour we had transferred it to the lab.
And be very careful. Listen, when you clean the intestine, there are chances that you may rupture the inner epithelial layer. So be very careful, very softly. You should just, wash it off. That's what is very important. That's why it stinks. I'm so sorry, but it does. And nasal membrane, though, it's so difficult because it's a thin membrane. So, you have to do it on the same day. Don't never ever keep it in the fridge. Plan it in such a way that you bring it, you do it, and you finish it off. And then into straight bio bags and out.
Yes. Okay, ma'am. There's a question from. There is a question from Alicia.
Where are the questions? Okay, show conversations. I'll get questions. Okay. Yeah, or otherwise.
The chat box. Should I read it for you?
I can see one wherein in case of catamenial epilepsy, is there an increase in prostaglandins? Okay. It is not prostaglandins as such. It is the progesterone levels that go up and down. That you have to monitor, particularly in catamenial epilepsy. So the model is also today morning only. I just wrote it down because it was done long back and we haven't even published it. So what we generally do now, we give them gonadotropin injection first, and then we give them HCG injection, and then after 10 days you give them finasteride. So when you give finasteride, suddenly the progesterone levels change, and that's what leads to catamenial epilepsy for that matter. So it's a different model, but you can work out, and there are papers about it. And it's easy. You don't have to give electrical shocks, nothing. But you have to check this very particularly.
Dr. Satna, there is Bhavya Ashwale who wants to speak with you. She wants to ask you a question.
Sure.
Miss Bhavya, the mic is offered to you. Mic is given to you. You can ask the question. Bhavya? Yes, Bhavya, the mic is offered to you. You have to unmute and ask the question. I don't think he is able to. Are there any more questions? Alivia, you see in the
Bhavya is still raising her hand.
Yeah, she's raising. We have given the microphone out.
Good afternoon, madam.
Hi, good afternoon.
May I ask what is the selection criteria of 8 animals in each group?
8 animals, particularly for this PTZ, na? And the
Yeah.
kindling. So generally you take more than 6, because 6 is for what you say, statistical significance. Take a little more in case your animals are mortal. In that case, when you inject, anyway, this time the PTZ injection also was 35 milligrams, so a lower dose was there. But generally, when you take, when you do epilepsy or even diabetes for that matter, even you can go up to 10 animals. So 8 was comfortable for us, and none of them died also. So that was the major reason. Take a little more number than what is required for statistical reasons.
Okay, madam. Thank you.
Okay, I don't see more questions.
Yes, there are no more questions. Somebody, Mrunal, Mrunal, there are some raised hands. Is Mrunal madam there?
Yeah, I can see them, but I don't see anything in the chat box for that matter.
No, they have raised their hands.
Yeah.
You need to give them
Vaibhavi
mic.
wants to ask. Vaibhavi wants to ask one question.
Sure.
She has raised the hand. I have given a mic to Vaibhavi. Vaibhavi, please unmute and you can ask.
Oh, hi, Vaibhavi.
Hello, madam.
How are you? So nice
So
to
good
see you.
to see you after a
Yeah.
long time.
Yes,
And it was
very
a wonderful session. My question is related to like 2 questions actually I have. You had mentioned about the surgery related to,
Yes.
the epileptic focus and then removal of that focus. So
Yes.
whether any animal model can be developed in relation to this particular approach of
Surgery, I wonder, because see, for developing any animal model for surgery, first you need to establish the focus. Meaning you need to have that add something into a particular area of the brain by using stereotaxy or so. But removal, see, we are not surgeons, so I wonder whether we would be able to do this, and we would be able to what you say, keep the animals in that survival. We would be able to do that. That's what is an issue. So I've not seen really, but surgery is done. People do that, and they feel a little better. Continuous firing is there. So, but I have not come across such models for that matter.
Okay.
Maybe it's that reason.
Yeah, and maybe even for such protocols, maybe ethics committee may not give approval also. That
No, first they'll ask you whether you are expert, whether you can survive the animals. Only then. But then how, like, I think even a veterinarian surgeon, uh, he also would show, okay, I have that expertise. And
Yeah.
then they would allow maybe. Yeah.
Yeah. And
And then
second
once you
question.
remove it now, again you
Yeah.
have to check it by EEG, whether
Yes,
it's working or not really.
Yes, yes, yes. And ma'am, second question is related to the immunohistochemistry you had mentioned, right? So
Right,
can you
right.
elaborate a little more on that?
Yeah, so what, see, we have a collaboration with this NIRRH. So
Okay.
you have many other biology colleges also, huh? Meaning Khalsa has, Xavier's have. So
Hmm.
even they have this, and what you do is you take section, whatever area. Now we want to see hippocampus. So we
Yeah.
will take hippocampus because we know where the hippocampus is as far as the
Hmm.
surgical atlas is there, and you keep that and you take that. Uh, and there they section it, and
Okay.
immunohistochemistry is done by using antibodies to that particular protein for that matter. So those antibodies are also there, but they are fluorescent tagged antibodies, and then
Hmm.
it just fluoresces and it becomes easy for us to check it. So it's nothing great.
Okay.
It's the same, the way we homogenize and do SOD, GSH. In the
Hmm. Hmm.
similar manner, you keep the brains and you take it there, freeze them
Okay.
and take it there, so that you
Okay.
don't lose anything.
Okay. Okay. That's all from my side, ma'am. Thank you so
And
much.
maybe in that case, you can, increase the number of animals if your biomarkers are more. But
Yeah.
since we had only GFAP and neuronal staining,
Hmm.
so we could do that in the
Okay.
mice.
Okay. Yeah, yeah. That's all, madam. Thank you so much.
Yeah, Vaibhavi, where are you now? Bharati Vidyapeeth, is it?
Yes, yes, yes. I think since
Okay.
2012, I'm working with Bharati Vidyapeeth Navi Mumbai.
Okay, okay, okay.
Yeah. And yeah, I would like to actually see you in person, hopefully
Come
soon.
over. Come over.
Yeah,
I'll call you.
yeah, sure, sure. Thank you. Thank you, Mrinal madam.
Welcome.
So those were the times now we used to interact. Now
Actually,
nothing. We are in our own domains.
Yes,
yeah,
yes, very sad. So wish this was a physical FDP and we would have seen you in college today.
Yeah, we
yeah.
could have met.
Yes,
Everybody has liked your session, Padma ma'am.
Thank you so
That
much.
yes.
is
Any more questions, Pranal? Anybody has
great.
any?
Nobody has yet raised the hand, but those who are interested to interact with Dr. Sadhna Sakri, please raise your hand and we will offer you the microphone.
No more questions, no?
No more.
So you have made everything very clear,
I
Sadhana ma'am.
guess. So no more questions. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Pranal, can we conclude this?
Yeah. Padma,
Yeah.
Dr.
Thank
Sadhna,
you once
please.
again. Yes. Thank
Should
you
we
so
wait?
much once again. Pardon?
Yeah.
If Dr. Sadhna is okay, we can conclude this.
Yeah. Definitely. And thank you all, Mrunal. It was because of you that I, kind of gathered everything and made it into a presentation. It was really very exciting journey to make this
This was
presentation
going
also.
on in ICT, and I thought it must be shared with all our faculties across India.
Yeah.
So it's a really wonderful work, and the way the research has to be carried further without giving up. That was another lesson for our researchers from your presentation.
Yeah, don't give up. Even if it doesn't work, choose another model. Do something. It would. If you are convinced about the activity, say by docking studies or something is in your mind, right? To rationalize a particular research.
And that's a very the area we should talk about. A lot of research going on anti-epileptic, but anti-epileptogenic is really
None as of today.
which drugs are not there in the market, and that will surely help, to prevent it's a good concept which we have.
We should get good partners also, to take this ahead,
Since
do
morning we are
everything.
talking, Dr. Paradkar sir also said same thing what you said. A lot of expert
Yes, yes.
education, team building, planning is essential to get the product to commercial level. And
Things have changed, and the regulations have changed so much. It's been difficult to get it across in the market. Like now, this wouldn't stop. Okay, I've patented, but then I'll have to show. Okay, I want to ask all the attendees if they're there. Are they there? Okay, I can see at least 103 of them. So I want to ask them what is missing is, can I take, okay, I've patented vadolactone. Can I take it ahead? Now that I know I have some more time, I can definitely take this question. So volunteers, not volunteers, the attendees, what else we need to do? Okay, I patented, now what? How can I make it into a product for that matter?
You
Is
have to
there
have some industry collaboration, madam, to make it into a marketed formulation.
Absolutely, but what more studies need to be done? Is it done at this stage or not really?
No, no, no. No, no.
So what is needed? As a pharmacist, and we know the business now. So what all we can do? What is missing? So
Clinical study.
can we go directly to clinical studies as of now?
No.
No. So what? Yes,
Maybe it has to be translated into higher animal studies.
No, Vaibhavi is there, my colleague now, Vaibhavi Peshattiwar. So she's talking of toxicity studies. It's very important that we have to show, and literally minimum 3 months repeated dose administration of whatever we wish to. Like if I say every 8 hours, if the drug is going out, then I have to show 3 times administration per day for XYZ days, meaning 3 months. And I'll have to show in 3 different doses, meaning one lower and one higher than this dose. So once that gets done, then I can ask permission for conduct of clinical studies. So it's a long process. It wouldn't stop at this. The major hurdle is regulatory toxicity studies, and that also for long term, because we are going to use this product for a long term. That's very important. More than stability. Stability, yes, we can. On the shelf, we can see, or we can, develop into a different product. Analytical methods, yes, they are there. Validated analytical methods that we have done. All that we need to do is toxicity. That's important. Animal regulatory preclinical toxicity studies to get a license to conduct clinical studies. That's most important. So I'm done. I mean, yeah, the students can relax till the next session starts now. Participants are not students. I can see so many colleagues also.
Yeah, Dr. Swati, you can conclude. Swati, are you talking? You are muted.
Yeah. No, you talk. You talk.
You conclude. I don't think there are any more questions, and no one has raised the hand.
Yeah, no more questions. No more questions, na? So thank you, Sadhna madam, for accepting our invitation. taking out time from your busy schedule and joining us here.
It was a
It
pleasure.
was a
Yes.
real informative session, and like I said, a very detailed one, right from the inception of idea up to the product. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
Thank you very much, Satma.
Yes. Thank you.